Ellen Ripley doesn't explain herself. She doesn't sit someone down and walk them through what the alien did to her psychologically. She doesn't have a breakdown scene where another character holds her and they cry together. She picks up a flamethrower and she gets the job done. And she is, by any measure, one of the greatest heroes ever put on screen. Sarah Connor in Terminator 2 does a pull-up in a psychiatric facility with the dead-eyed focus of someone who has decided that feelings are a luxury she cannot afford. She's terrifying and magnetic and completely compelling, and she processes her trauma entirely through action, preparation, and the refusal to stop moving. These are some of cinema's most celebrated female heroes, and they share one specific thing that most modern female heroes don't have anymore. They were built on the heroic engine that storytelling has used for literally thousands of years. The one that says a hero is defined not by what they say about themselves, but by what they do when it costs them everything. Somewhere in the last decade, a lot of Hollywood forgot how that engine works. And the characters who paid the highest price for that forgetting were ironically the ones Hollywood was trying hardest to celebrate. Here's the thing about the heroic archetype that people often misread. It's not about being tough. It's not about never crying or never being afraid. It's about one specific dramatic principle. A hero is revealed through pressure, not through explanation. We don't learn who a hero is from what they tell us about themselves. We learn who they are from watching them make impossible choices and live with the consequences. The more those consequences cost them, and the less they complain about that cost, the more we believe in them. This is why Stoicism works so well as a heroic trait. Not because emotions are weak, but because a character who contains their emotion, who pushes it down and keeps moving anyway, generates dramatic tension in a way that a character who expresses everything immediately simply cannot. The pressure has to build somewhere for the release to mean anything. Think about what makes Ripley work. She's absolutely terrified. You can see it. But she doesn't stop. Her fear is a private thing. It lives behind her eyes and in the set of her jaw, and because it's private, because she keeps it contained and keeps acting anyway, every choice she makes feels big. The restraint is what gives the courage its weight. Same with Sarah Connor. The T2 version is a woman who has been pushed past the point of normal emotional response. She's hard, she's cold, she's borderline frightening, and that hardness is the story. It's what the Terminator's arrival did to a normal human being, dramatized through behavior instead of monologue. She shows you what happened to her. She doesn't tell you. The bride in Kill Bill, Oren Ishii, Eowyn in The Lord of the Rings. These are women who carry enormous emotional weight, loss, rage, grief, purpose, and channel it entirely into action. Their interior lives are communicated through what they do and refuse to do. They have what we might call silent rage, a fury so controlled and so directed that it becomes almost geometric. And it's electric to watch. And the keyword is contained. The heroic engine runs on containment, in the sense that there is something vast and volatile underneath the surface, held in check by will and purpose and the sheer refusal to fall apart before the job is done. Now let's talk about what replaced that engine, because something did replace it, and it's specific enough that once you see it, you'll recognize it everywhere. The new template goes like this. The hero is introduced as already powerful, already special, already chosen. They don't have to earn our belief. They're validated by the narrative from the opening scene. Then they face a challenge, not a challenge that tests their character, but one that makes them doubt their already confirmed greatness. Then someone, a mentor, a friend, a reflection, reminds them of who they really are. They remember, they activate their power, they win. And then, crucially, they explain how it felt, usually at length. Captain Marvel is the clearest example, because it's almost a diagram of the problem. Carol Danvers spends most of the film being told, by the Kree, by her own suppressed memories, by Jan Rog, that she needs to control her emotions. And the film's big empowerment moment is when she decides to stop controlling them. She lets her power out. She feels everything fully. She wins. And look, as a statement of intent, I understand what they were going for. But as drama, is a disaster, because the film has given her no genuine cost, no real failure, no moment where her resolve is tested and found to be genuinely insufficient. The obstacles feel designed to be overcome. The stakes never feel real. You cannot have a triumphant release of power if the power was never genuinely in doubt. Compare that to Ripley's final confrontation with the Queen Alien. Ripley has already been through hell. She's exhausted, she's terrified, she's running on fumes and fury. When she gets in that loader suit, it means something, because we've watched the cost accumulate. There's no music swell telling us to feel inspired. We just feel it, because the story earned it. Rey, in the sequel trilogy, is a similar case, though the problems are spread across 3 films. Rey is gifted, naturally powerful, and essentially never shown failing in a way that genuinely challenges her sense of self. The closest the films come is the throne room scene in The Last Jedi. By the time Rise of Skywalker arrives, the film is openly telling us, scene by scene, how special and important Rey is. A hero who needs to be told they're heroic by the narrative itself has a fundamental dramatic problem. Then, there's what happened across Marvel's Phases 4 and 5, where the pattern became almost procedural. The hero is powerful. Someone underestimates them because of gender or age or background. The hero proves themselves. Someone validates that proof explicitly. The villain is defeated less by heroic resolve than by the hero accessing their emotions fully. Modern writing treats power as a right, something that is unlocked by self-acceptance. But the classical hero treats power as a burden, something that is earned through sacrifice. One is about the self, the other is about duty, and audiences can smell the difference. So why did this happen? Because it didn't happen randomly. There was a specific set of ideas driving these creative decisions, and understanding them is the only way to understand why they kept failing. Starting roughly in the mid-2000s, there was a genuine and understandable cultural push to write female heroes differently. The old template, the argument went, was too masculine, stoic, emotionally repressed, defined by violence and physical dominance. These weren't values that spoke to women. A new model was needed, one that celebrated emotional intelligence, that framed vulnerability as strength, that let female characters be fully human rather than female-shaped action figures. As a cultural intention, that's not wrong. The problem is what happened when it collided with dramatic craft, because the writers and studios executing this vision confused 2 different things. They confused emotional expressiveness with emotional depth, and they are not the same. Emotional depth is what Ripley has. We feel everything she feels intensely, even though she barely articulates it. The depth is communicated through performance, through situation, through the weight of what's at stake. It's shown. Emotional expressiveness is what the replacement template gives us. The character says how they feel. They say it clearly and all the time. And the problem is that once they say it, there's nothing left to feel. The audience's imagination has been replaced by a caption. The second mistake was making the hero infallible as a form of respect. The thinking was that female heroes have historically been undermined, belittled, and put in danger to motivate male characters. So the corrective is a hero who is never genuinely undermined, who is always, in the end, right, whose moral instincts are validated, whose power is never truly in question. But infallibility is the enemy of drama. A hero who cannot fail cannot really win. The victory is only meaningful in proportion to the genuine possibility of defeat. When the narrative protects a character from real failure, from real cost, it paradoxically makes them smaller, not larger. You can't feel triumph if you never felt the ground give way underneath you. Stoicism got coded as toxic repression. Silent resolve got read as emotional unavailability. The quality that made characters like Sarah Connor mythic got rebranded as a symptom of something broken, something to be healed. So writers healed it. They opened the characters up. They made them expressive and self-aware and emotionally generous. And they drained the tension right out of them. Here's the thing though. The audience never stopped responding to the original engine. Every time someone builds a female hero the old way, with cost and restraint and genuine testing, it works, without exception. Here's the thing that gets lost in this conversation when it turns into a culture war argument, and it always does, which is that the audience never rejected female heroes. Not even close. Ripley is one of the most beloved characters in cinema history. 2B has a fan base that approaches religious devotion. Audiences will follow a female hero anywhere, as long as the hero is actually leading them somewhere, as long as the story is willing to genuinely cost her something. What audiences rejected, what underperformed, what got review bombed, what generated the backlash that everyone keeps misreading as sexism, was the specific formula, the infallibility, the narrative validation, the therapy session structure dressed up in action movie clothes, the sense that the story was protecting the hero from the one thing that could make her real, genuine, unrescued, uncushioned failure. When you take stoicism out of a hero, you take out the tension. When you take silent resolve out, you take out the weight. When you make sure the hero is always emotionally supported, always validated, always right, you take out the loneliness that makes heroism mythic. Because being a hero, in every story tradition humans have ever had, is fundamentally a lonely thing. It costs more than it should. It requires you to carry something that no one else will carry, in silence, past the point where any reasonable person would have put it down.
Get away from her, you